Hi everybody, I'm Jack the Rainwing Raconteur. I'm here with the Meet the Community book tag. It was originally created by Witch Kitten Reads. I was tagged by Ryan over at Seeking Stories. And thank you of course for that. I'll link both their channels below. This is less book heavy perhaps than my usual prompts that I have to explore. But it's more just a couple of questions about me. So without further ado, prompt one is, what is your name? Well, it's Jack. There you go. Prompt two, where are you from? Phoenix, Arizona. I've lived here my entire life. I grew up on the west side. I live downtown now. Short of a 4-year period where I lived in Tucson. I lived on campus all 4 years when I was at college at the University of Arizona in Tucson, about an hour and a half, 2 hours south of Phoenix. The rest of my life I've lived here. Different parts around the valley, but always right here. Prompt three, do I have any pets? No, my wife and I are firm believers in the idea around you need to take care of your pets and really spend time with them, provide them with a great quality life and experience, and we don't have time for that. We have not had time for that since we got married. So that's something that might change. As our daughters get older, we might have a pet. My wife is severely allergic to cats. I have the itch from their dander, but her throat closes up, so it wouldn't be a cat. It would need to be a dog or perhaps a fish or turtle or something. But no pets right now. Prompt four, what's the most binge-worthy Netflix show? Ryan was right on with the Netflix originals when he went with Stranger Things. I'm going to agree with that. But I will add that if it's a show that's on Netflix, the most binge-worthy to watch, is going to be, for me, The Great British Bake Off. And my wife's a huge fan of it. I'm pretty good about not getting distracted by television. I can just keep reading. We'll sit in the same room. But that's one where I'm just drawn to the food. And I think part of it is the sense of competition is very different there. In that their competition where they're baking in this wonderful tent outside is very different from the high pressure type reality TV competition you see here in the United States. Even the feedback is often kinder, and I've also learned a lot. I've learned a lot about baking savory pies and meat pies and things like that. So that would be my number one Netflix binge watch. Prompt five, an instant by author. I have two. One is Marisha Pessl, who I tried not to go with people who have published huge numbers of books. But one is Marisha Pessl, and she's only published, I believe, 3 books. But the second one, Night Film, was absolutely incredible. It's one of my 3 or 4 favorite books of the past 20 years. And so kind of whatever she comes out with, I'm interested in because of what Night Film did for my mind. The other is more of a personal connection, and it's Kiley Reid, who published her first book, I believe on the last week of December in 2019, Such a Fun Age. It's Kiley Reid. And that's because she actually had at least one class with my wife at the University of Arizona. And so my wife had met her and kind of, had made an acquaintance, and then sort of followed through social media, followed her progression to the Iowa Writers Workshop, and then ultimately to publishing this novel. And so we were really, the Tucson Festival of Books didn't get to happen in 2020 with the COVID-19 pandemic and the massive public health crisis. But she would have been at that Festival of Books. So we're going to, see what her next work will be. Prompt 6, do you have any hobbies besides books? Now this is where the whole I've lived my entire life in Phoenix becomes just slightly more impressive with one of my hobbies. So if you've watched for a while, you'll see periodically I'm outside hiking, and I do TBRs or little videos out in the different places I get to hike across the Southwest. So I've been hiking since I was a kid. We used to have, now you have a hydro flask with, you can put cold water and ice in it, and the vacuum seal of the container keeps the water cold for hours as you're hiking. When I was a kid, what we did was you'd freeze a couple of water bottles, and so then you'd put those in a backpack on your back, along with some other water bottles that were just cold water, refrigerated water. And so you would drink from the frozen bottles as they melted, and then refill like with that central block core of ice, you'd refill from the other water bottles, and it also would kind of keep your back cool. So I still hike quite frequently. The other one is running. So I've been running track and field and cross country since I was a kid. I ran all through high school. I had an injury my senior year of high school, so I didn't run competitively after that. But I still do like road races, and I coached for a long time. I coached some really, really, really talented young people, some of whom I'm still in contact with, so that's been nice. But yes, I ran cross country in Phoenix, Arizona, which means I would go out and run 6 to 8 miles in July, training to get ready for the cross country season when it's extraordinarily hot out, and you'd have to kind of plan out like where's your water break midway through the run and things like that. Even at night or at dawn, it's still obscenely hot. The other two hobbies I have, so I play a lot of board games. I've introduced my older daughter, who's 4 now, to a number of board games, so she knows what victory points are. My wife and I play a lot of board games together. We include, our kids in that. And so my older daughter is already starting to like take some of my strategies and then use them against me. It's fascinating. Our friends joke that in about 3 years, like, they're never going to win another board game. And probably I won't either, which will be great. So I'm very proud of my daughter and how clever she is. The other one is Ultimate Frisbee. So I started playing Ultimate Frisbee when I was in college. We had intramural teams. We had sort of like different floors of the same residence hall or dorm would play against each other. Different halls would play against each other. There was a club team at U of A, so I played on that. It's very, very fun. And as a track coach, the week my daughter was born, we had state testing exams, and so we didn't move. Players from another sport that is really only played in North America and involves a ball, but it's called football, but it should probably be called hand-egg. They moved some bleachers onto the field for something they were doing, and we weren't allowed to have like really intense track practices that week of state testing, so we were just playing Ultimate Frisbee. And I was running to catch the Frisbee for a score, and I was 29, I was sprinting at top speed, and I suddenly realized that the bleachers were on the field, not off the field. And so in order to not run into the bleachers and break something, I had to go to ground and like slide into them, holding the Frisbee like this, and bruised both limbs. I vilely like scraped up my knees. I had an abrasion bigger than like my palm on my left shin. I just kind of got up and was glad I hadn't broken anything. I like rinsed off and was running around, and suddenly I realized like a bunch of the kids weren't playing anymore. They were all just kind of standing around. One of the seniors like started pointing like this, and I looked down and it looked like my whole leg was covered in blood. It wasn't. It was just a surface injury, but I went home, cleaned up and stuff, and then the next day, my wife had our first daughter. So I've been on probation with Ultimate Frisbee. I'm allowed to like throw and catch, but I can't go play competitively for just over 4 years now. Prompt 7, a random fact that most people don't know. Well, since I gave the Frisbee story, I'm left-handed. You wouldn't know that from, this media form. Prompt 8, favorite bookish or nerdy swag. It's probably this Watership Down t-shirt I'm wearing. This is a favorite of mine. Watership Down was my favorite book as a kid. This is my old copy of it. So it's this. The other one that's great is this is a family tree of the Compson family in The Sound and the Fury that I made for my wife in college when she was reading it. We weren't even dating at the time. And she was reading it and was asking me some questions around, and I said, oh, here, let me help you. There's 2 Quentins. Let me show you how. And so I sketched this up real quickly at the front desk, and she ended up keeping it. And then, years later, here it still is. Prompt 9, one book or series you love that no one talks about. The book would be Ragtime by E.L. Doctorow. Love this. There's also been a really good musical version of it that I saw in 2015, but I really enjoyed this one. It's not quite the Hamilton musical, but it's very, very good. And then the series would be, Joan Vinge has this series, I'm not sure what it's actually called, but the first books are The Snow Queen and The Summer Queen. And then there's Tangled Up in Blue, there's World's End, which is sort of like a novella between these two. And I don't know if I've ever heard anybody talk about them, and I love them. They're award-winning. Prompt 10, favorite new or new to you booktubers. So a new booktuber who I always enjoy his thoughts, his contributions would be Duncan McCurdy. And then a new to me, I don't know, he's been around, I think maybe 6-7 months. But I found him because he posted a review of Jeff Vandermeer's Annihilation, which I really like. And his review was really good, and he's very, very funny and like enthusiastic, is Ben Reid's books. So prompt 11 is to tag other people. This is just a fun sort of get to know you one. So if you're feel like called to do this one, by all means, go for it. Thank you everyone. Again, please stay safe, and I'll see you around.